Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This is the 6th book in the Harry Potter series, and this is one which differs from the rest. It becomes more about kind of setting up the last book, as well as retaining a sense of narrative structure, and it's perfectly well done. It's just very good. Before we get into the video, I'm just going to talk about how I'm going to review the book. For anyone who's not been here before, I review the book by giving a general overview of how and what I like about the book. I'll take 5 chapters and I will try and stick to 5, but sometimes I go on a tangent. But I'll take 5 chapters, I'll look at them, tell them say what I like about them, especially in the specific bits. And then I'll give a final overview, and then I'll give a score out of 100. I used to use a 5-star system, but I feel that doesn't give enough room for me to differentiate between different novels. Because like I said before, I feel all the Harry Potter books are around a 4-star. And if the reviews would be pretty rubbish if they were just 4-star, 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 you know what I mean. Okay, before we get into this, just letting you know, I stream over on Twitch every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 12 till 6. Go check that out. I'll leave links down in the description. And my name's Finn. Just introducing myself because I don't actually think I've done that before. Okay, so the Half-Blood Prince. As I've said, this is the penultimate installment in the Harry Potter series, and it is it's like really entertaining because it does something that little spoiler for a video I'm gonna do later down the line, something that the film doesn't successfully do, which is balance the 2 storylines that are in the book, the kind of teenage kind of relationships parts, as well as the kind of deep dive into Voldemort's past. And it kind of expands on that character of Voldemort, which previously has been like mentioned, and I know he's been in other books, but like the first book, Voldemort ended up trying to get the Philosopher's Stone, which guess he may return to power, but the things that he's done have all been mentioned as acts performed before the books. And I believe as a reader that I'd prefer, like, to see the main villain perform acts during real time of the novels to then further prove why he should be feared. And yes, mentioning, oh, he was a dark wizard, no one speaks of his name, he did some terrible things before the books. Yes, that's like background setup. And that is kind of what's going on in this novel, the kind of setting up how Voldemort became to be Voldemort. But the detail that's gone in during these scenes, because this whole chapter is dedicated to exploring these memories, kind of builds on that. And it does, obviously he doesn't actually do things himself that, obviously he killed Cedric in the 4th book, just saying. If you got this far looking at this review, hopefully you read the month before, but he killed Cedric. Kind of, it's his wand. But the fear that surrounds Voldemort is kind of empty in terms of, like, the bad deeds have been mentioned but not formed within real time of the books. And so these kind of flashback scenes let us explore Voldemort's character and the reasons behind why he is who he is. Obviously it doesn't justify stuff, but it just adds a bit more detail to the character who's kind of been quite flat up until now. The other side of this book revolves around the relationships between characters, and also with the title of the book, the question over who the Half-Blood Prince is. It's weird how the Half-Blood Prince is the title of the book, but it's weird. The Order of Phoenix is the same. One of the characters I think excels in this book is the character of Ginny, because the relationship between her and Harry is kind of built up through this book, but it's one of those, I hate in books the whole love at first sight thing. I don't think that works. That's infatuation. That's not, I don't see that as real love. And for this character of Ginny to be in the book since the beginning and still having a relative. It gains a presence mainly in the 5th one, where she joins the DA and they speak about. She's like there quite a bit then, but then when you get into this one, her character becomes a lot more independent and she becomes one of like the strongest morally characters in which I just really like. And her relationship with Harry is I really like, to be honest. The way that's like set up, and then I really like that bit. Okay, so if we're gonna take 5 chapters, we're gonna start with the House of Gaunt. Gaunt, I think that's how you say it. And this is the initial chapter where they first dive into memories that explore Voldemort's past, and this talks about the what's it called, the where his mum used to live, and she was she could perform magic, but she was a witch, but she was kind of abused by her father and her brother, and she was kind of like treated really badly, and so she kind of suppressed magic a little bit. Not to the full extent of an obscurious, but obscurial? Don't know. But it just gives that, like I said before, it gives that kind of detail to Voldemort's character when he's not on screen, on page, yeah. And it kind of adds that kind of understanding to Voldemort. Not, like I said before, that he's like justified for what he's done, but as a character, he isn't just a name that should be feared, but rather a fully fledged being who had like life before the books. And like I said before, we're meant to believe that he killed people prior to the books, but like I said before, with the reader's influence, like the reader kind of wants to read about acts he's performed during the books, to add to that, to validate those things that happened before. He needs to continue that through. And up until now, he's kind of done things, obviously, for example, the first book, The Philosopher's Stone, he tried to get stone. And for most of the book, we don't even know Voldemort's involved. And then when we do, it's someone else performing on his behalf. And only then at the end do we realise it's Quill and Voldemort, can join. And even in the second one, it's a Horcrux, which we'll talk about later. And it's not actually Voldemort himself. So some of these things that are happening, we need that kind of validation through another act. And that's why I like these kind of memory dives into Voldemort's past, to understand him more as a character. The next chapter we're going to talk about is Birthday Surprises. This chapter focuses mainly on the other side of the story I talked about earlier, the teenage relationship kind of stuff. And it adds this comedic moment ish. I say ish, I'll talk about it in a second. To the book, which was kind of needed. It was and I really like this part, especially because, so Ron, better context, Ron consumes some chocolates from Harry's bed, thinking it's a present for him, and they are filled with love potion put there by Romilda Vane. So Harry now has to take care of Ron, who is suddenly deeply in love with this person he's never met before, even though he's in a relationship with someone else, and it's very, very funny, and as this kind of comedic segment, which I just really like. The chapter, however, does take a darker turn near the end, where Ron nearly gets killed, gets poisoned, and this kind of shifts back focus. It's a way of like shifting back focus from what was happening to the main plot points, which is Draco's kind of attempts to kill Dumbledore. Next chapter, Horcruxes. I like this one because it's the addition, as the title suggests, of the idea of Horcruxes. So Voldemort cannot be defeated just by a simple fight, and we're not waiting for that fight. There are other steps that have to be taken in order to then defeat him, which kind of sets up the premise for the next novel, where Harry has to track down the Horcruxes. and it just as a more like understandable, is I don't know what the word would be, way to come about and defeat a villain. But it's just, I feel it's kind of better than just the fact that he has to kill him and he has to kind of just get into a fight with Voldemort. It's not like we're waiting for, I don't know. I don't like the fact that he has to kill him, and that to do that he has to just get into a fight. It would be so easy just to do that and have the whole book just him trying to find a successful way in order to kill Voldemort by making sure everything is in his favour. But they've added this kind of stepping stone, which adds a process to the next book, and I like the way Horcruxes are done. Like, the concept of them are very interesting. So the next chapter we're going to talk about is The Lightning Struck Tower. And here I'm going to talk about the last parts of the novel. So this is going to count as my 4 and 5, because I'm going to talk about the last whole segment, because I feel it's quite important to talk about. In the structure of the hero's journey, which is kind of what Harry's... Obviously, you can't define Harry Potter as just the hero's journey, because there are other bits and pieces that take place here. But in a hero's journey, the mentor normally dies. So Dumbledore's death here is not actually as surprising as people made it out to be. Yes, to have it happen at this part is surprising, but he was going to die. The death of the mentor acts as a way to propel the main character into a sense of help them come into their own, and so they're not overshadowed by this mentor, and they come into the forefront of their own abilities. And not only that, it acts as a kind of driving force for them to continue their journey, so that the mentor didn't die for no reason. They can continue that. Throughout this book, Dumbledore, especially with the amount of page time he's had in comparison to previous books, he's kind of been built on as a character. And so this death isn't just the loss of kind of knowledge and a character who kind of encompasses this wisdom. He actually is more of a friend of sorts by the end of this. I've been harping on in other reviews, whenever these two characters, Harry and Dumbledore, are together in a scene, that they kind of have this mutual respect for each other, and I feel that this novel just encapsulates that. Dumbledore is trying to teach Harry about Voldemort and teach him everything he knows himself, because he feels that he is worthy enough to know this, and obviously he's aware of his own death because he planned that with Snape. We'll talk about in the next review. But he teaches Harry because he's aware that he is an equal, and he feels he is better than him in terms of morally as a person. And so when Dumbledore dies, he isn't just a character of wisdom, but a friend to Harry, which makes this death even worse. Dumbledore's own death signifies this kind of loss of protection, and acts as a kind of final stepping stone for Harry to take into the last run of sorts, into being able to defeat Voldemort. Like I said, the whole year itself has been about teaching Harry to know his enemy and to understand him, so that when it comes to it, he can not only predict how his enemy is going to act, but just be able to navigate how to get around some things that kind of crop up. So we'll go in more detail in the Deathly Hallows review, because that kind of where everything comes to fruition and we get to see the end of what's going on. Okay, so let's talk about this book in the kind of final analysis section. I feel where this book excels is the development of characters. Not only Voldemort, who's off screen, well, off the page, yeah, and adds a bit more to the villain, but characters such as Dumbledore, Harry himself obviously becomes a bit more independent, and Ginny's a great one. To be honest, Draco is a good one here as well. He actually performs, he's like comes back from that kind of bullying nature that he's had throughout the series, and is more focused on trying to do right by his family, so that way he's like, so because he's terrified. It's when you kind of feel sorry for Draco, because he's having to do this thing. He has to kill Dumbledore in order for his family to survive. And this novel, I feel, is great at balancing both the kind of teenage stuff that's going on, as well as the dark undertones that have been set up since like the end of Goblet of Fire, and it kind of, yeah, and it just manages to balance that and carry that onwards, and set it up for the last and final book. So I'm going to give this book a score of 87 out of 100. Don't forget to check out my Twitch, link is all down below. If you would also like to speak to anyone else in the community, or myself in the Discord channel, there's also a link for that. And if you'd like to buy the book, I'll leave a link down below if you've not already got one. Terrible, have you not got one already? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.